Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is One Day Today, episode 138. I am very excited about our guest today, who you will meet in a moment. But I always like to start off with, who am I, and who are we? What, like, we on this floating rock in the middle of space? Like, what is this life all about? What are we doing here? What am I doing here? What power do I have, and do you have, to create a world that we all win, that we all embrace and celebrate and acknowledge the gifts, the unique gifts of ourselves and our neighbor, and what's possible when we hold that space for ourselves and each other. And that 138 episodes in, and that there's no one answer to that question, and that's what's so exciting about this space is we celebrate leaders who are up to things greater than themselves, who are sharing their gifts, who are lifting up empowering, and lifting up others with their voice, with their stories, with their gifts. And it's a beautiful thing to experience. When I think, especially in the pandemic age, there was a lot happening in the world that, a lot of fear, a lot of suffering, a lot of scary things happening. And I feel no matter what, whatever we focus on is what we'll see. And if we focus on the things that are scary, that are hard, that there's no issue finding things to be scared about. There's no issue finding things that are scary. But at the same time, there's always something beautiful to listen for. There's always a beauty to be discovered when we're actually willing to look and to listen and to cause and create that in our lives, for ourselves, for our neighbors, for strangers, for people we don't even know. And it's a gift that keeps on giving. What's possible in a world when we actually hold that space for our neighbor, when we nourish and plant those seeds of love, of laughter, wonder, and beauty. What beautiful world can we create when that's what we hold for each other? And before I introduce our guest, I want to welcome our co-host Matthew. Hello, Matthew.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Oh man, yeah. I've kind of ignored that question on this stage, the one you always open with, because it's not that it's too big. It's just that it's never really felt appropriate to dive into it. And
Mm,
right now it feels like it is for some reason. There's another way I asked that question. I know, and we've talked about this in conversation with some of our other guests, like this has come up. But there's a way I like to phrase the question that's a little bit different. So I'm going to ask it as if I'm asking you this question, Abram.
mm.
And the question is always, where was Abram when you were born? Right. And so like that starts this inquiry of, okay, right, because did Abram even exist when I was
Mhm.
born? Like, and then if Abram didn't exist, then what did? And what is that? And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And it's this beautiful level of inquiry that I feel like it never stops. It's something that we can spend, at least I feel I can spend my entire life just exploring that one question, because it
Mhm.
leads to so many levels of other questions. And you're right, like it's the inquiry, like it's the conversations that we have here that really kind of play out all these different answers that I personally had never even considered before. And I love it. Like it's every single time I come back, like even when I'm upset, even when I'm angry, even when I'm scared or whatever, coming back to these conversations and coming back to this question with people who are actually willing to dive into it is such a grounding experience, and I love it so
Mhm.
much. And like, I feel like I could do this forever. Like if you know, maybe not even like our current schedule, like once a week. Even if we don't keep that up for what reason, for some reason, like still, like I want to keep this conversation going, and I want like more input and more points of view and more people coming in that are willing to explore it.
Absolutely. And it's something that it's almost so obvious, but you don't see it unless you're in a space, or I don't see it unless I'm actually willing to look, and I'm willing to inquire. And I feel like it takes so much courage for anybody, for me, for any person to actually see and look in the mirror and see, and ask that question, and I feel like in the arc of a lot of times, growing up, we think life is just going to be this straight curve of, I'm going to, go to school, go to college, get a job, get married. It's just like this straight curve. And it's like, that's never what life has ever been. And it's always been this
Yeah.
curve of ups and downs of, and I feel like for the most part, our experience of ourselves in life is, what we think is going to happen. And then life turns that upside down. And it's like some trauma or some scary thing happens that we didn't expect. And it's always in the face of that it becomes the opportunity for us to break out of that identity that we had when we were, that society gave us, that our family gave us, that school gave us, that whatever gave us. But it's those masks and that identity of who we are, that bubble just expands when we actually realize who we are and who I am and what power I have right now, what power you have right now, what power we all have right now to create, beauty and joy and love and happiness for ourselves and others, even and especially when it's the scariest and the hardest.
Yeah, and it's like that learning to separate the what has been taught to us versus what we actually are that enables that creativity in my experience. Like the more I can separate from Matthew and just operate as this thing that I am, which I have no name for, it's just an experience, the more creativity comes and the more new ideas flow. And then also having these conversations inspires more creativity and more imagination. And like, if there's any one thing that I wish people had more access to in today's society, it's imagination and creativity. Like, I feel like that's something that has been pushed out of most of us growing up in this society. Like, it's definitely been my experience where like I feel like I lost connection to my imagination when I was about 6, 7, and it just kept getting pushed out and pushed out and pushed out. And now like I'm coming back to this place of, oh right, I can't, like, all of these things that exist today, like all these systems, all these structures, money, it's all just someone's imagination. Like someone imagined that at some point or co-imagined that with a bunch of other people. And it's just something that we imagined into existence years ago. It's not something we need to keep. We can change it. We can imagine something different, but like we need access to our creativity and our imagination in order to be able to do that.
Yeah, I love that you said that, and it's so true. And I feel like we, for the most part, we're conditioned, that like that's it's like the childlike wonder is something that is only for being a child. It's not something that
Yeah.
it's like we're almost taught that it's like, oh, you can't dream, you can't fantasize about what's possible. You just have to stick to your 9 to 5 and stick to what you've been told is important and who you are and what your life's about. And I feel that's that conditioning. I mean, it's an opportunity when we actually see it's like, oh, I don't have to lose that wonder. I can bring fun. I can find wonder in everything. There's so much to be discovered in the obstacles and the opportunities of life. And when
Yeah.
I'm willing to actually hold compassion for myself, for others, even when life is at its most difficult, there's always some wonder to behold, to inspire creativity, like you're saying. And it's like, even if we have that, nothing's wrong with having a 9 to 5, but even if we have that, we can still bring, some sense of creativity to our days where maybe you walk the same path every day, but maybe one day you twirl around and you skip, and the next day you sprint, the next day you crawl, and you high five the mailman on the way, or it's there's always, we get to say it doesn't have to
Yes.
be, even if it occurs as monotonous and doing the same thing over. We actually, creativity is not just in art, it's in our language, it's in our speaking, it's in our being. And I hear this a lot. I work with a lot of creatives and entrepreneurs, and a lot of the times I'll hear like, "Oh, I'm not creative. I don't I don't know how to. I'm not a creative type. And every time I hear that, people say like, the only reason you believe that is because you created that with your words. Is that you're not creative.
And actually, this is the perfect opportunity to introduce our guest, because like anyone who watches the show knows I come into this blind. Like I have no earthly idea what they're about to say. But we got a little bit of a preview backstage, and they're creating something, and I really love what they're creating. So like I feel like let's
Yeah.
bring Mary Frances on really quick and let her start sharing some of this stuff.
Yes. Well, everybody, please welcome to the stage Mary Frances Buckland.
Thank you so much
Hello.
for having me.
Welcome.
So, you started out your conversation, Abram, with a very interesting statement, and I'm just going to go with that. Is as being a health coach and a transformational coach. Everybody says that we need to be upbeat all of the time, and we need to be so this and so that. But we're human. And we have those bad days too, where we get up in the morning, we dangle our feet from the side of the bed, and then we say, how the hell am I going to get through today? I don't even feel like walking to the bathroom. And that happened to me. And it was 118 days ago. And how I can tell you that is it's when I started actually posting and boasting about today was day one, O-N-E, of day one, W-O-N. Every time you get up and you face the day, you've got to win. And, that's something positive to be about. Now, whether the most you can do is get up and, brush your teeth, brush your hair, and make your bed, take it as a win. Take it. It's, baby steps. There is so much going on in life that the more time that you spend with technology and watching TV, especially the news, you get dragged down. And if you listen to some of the words on the music that we're listening to, a lot of it is very hateful and it's very negative. So you need to be choosy about what you read, the people that you're around, and the people that influence you. In the last 118 days, I have cut a lot of people out of my life because they did not support the person that I want to be, and they were holding me back. It was that proverbial crap in your backpack that you need to shed. You got to clean out your wallet, get the receipts out. You got to clean out your purse, get the receipts out. You have to get the negativity out of and away from you in order to be able to strive on. So what I have done for the last 118 days is every morning I get up, and one of the first things typically that I do, is I find something from the day prior that inspired me. It could be a quote that I found on Facebook or one of the groups that I'm from. They've posted an inspiring picture, something like that. And I will, today is, day 118 of day one. And I'll write about how the picture or the statement underneath has evolved me, or how I made it through something like that. The other day it was, 2020, it broke us. I mean, it crumbled us all down. It made us go solitude. And here we are in 2023 trying to come out of it. And a lot of people don't want to. And it's not for health reasons or anything like that. They're realizing what the world around them has impacted them with. So, it's good to get up and count your wins. At the beginning of your day, find 3 things that you're grateful for. And when you lay your head down on the pillow, think of 3 good things that happened during the day. It's so much better for you to go to bed with a happy thought and, a happy heart than it is to try to sleep with negative thoughts. You cannot hold two thoughts in your brain at one time. You cannot hold a positive and a negative. So, there's always somebody out there who's willing to give you not only the hand up, but they're willing to walk by your side. And it's those people that you need to spend more time with. And if it means that your circle is a circle of two, it's a circle of two, but it will expand.
Sorry, it took me a second to unmute. Yeah, I feel you on that. It's especially like that last point you made, that because that goes back to the one fundamental constant in this world, which is change.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it may be a circle of two right now, and that's okay, because it's not going to stay a circle of two forever.
Right. But would you rather it be a circle of two people that support each other, or are you in a sea holding onto a piece of driftwood and everybody else is trying to yank it away from you?
Well, I know what I choose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm willing to let you hold on to my piece of driftwood, but you better kick with me and not against me.
I love that.
There's actually a poem. Abram, if you want to jump in for a second, there's a poem that a friend of mine sent me a while back, and it's become more and more and more resonant. I want to find it and read it, but just give me a second.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Mary Frances. I just acknowledge your commitment to just being that light. And what you were speaking to me, like when you're describing like getting up out of bed, is like, how the hell am I going to get through this? And it's how empowering it is to source that for ourselves. Going to bed with the no matter what happened today, it could have been the most difficult day of my life, but there's still something to be grateful for. There's still something, like I had enough food to eat. I made my friend laugh. I could be a listening ear for someone I care about. There's so many things that, when we forget to be grateful, or to have, to look back in our day, it's like we those moments kind of pass, and we forget, or I'll forget, and how much that impacts, our day and what we bring and source in our day. And I'm curious. So like, what happened in your life that allowed you to discover this for yourself?
I survived. I did spend 20 years in what I didn't realize at the time was an abusive relationship, because I didn't walk around with a black eye or a broken arm, like what you hear about most people that are in an abusive relationship. My relationship was emotional and mental abuse. And, I didn't realize, like I said, that it was happening. And I was divorced 20 years ago. And I'm really just now, thanks to my coach training and having some really awesome coaches, and I go to therapy to help deal and process all of these emotions. And, you can say, yeah, I have forgiven. You never forget. Just like when somebody passes away, you never forget them. They're always in your heart. And, these emotions are also in your heart. And you can wear a paper plate smile. Robin Williams is a perfect example of that. It's not the way to deal with it. You cannot fake it till you make it. You have to process and heal it before you can make it. And, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm putting my relationship very openly, all of the trials and tribulations from being raped at the age of 11 and overcoming that. It's all going in my book, because when you don't process, you become confused. and you don't know the difference between certain things. A perfect example is, how do you know if you're in love or in lust? You know, your mom always used to say, or your dad used to say, you don't know what love is. Well, when you find love, you realize you didn't know what love was back then. So, you know, we make a lot of decisions based on the knowledge that we have at the time. So now I look at my day as, you know, I have two choices. I can sit and stew and lay in bed, or I can rise and shine and make it grand.
I love it.
Oh, yeah. And like one other thing I'd really like to acknowledge for what you're doing right now is like, just thank you for just putting it all out there. Like, I feel like that's one of the most healing things that we can do, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us, is like, make it okay to talk about anything.
Yes.
Remove taboo. Like, just remove taboo. Like, it's a useless idea to say that something isn't, like, we can't talk about that just because it's uncomfortable.
Right. And just recently, I had a friend tell me, he said, you just need to stop playing the victim and stop talking about it and just move on with your life.
That's not what you're doing, though.
Right. Well, exactly. I'm not playing victim. I am showing that I am a victor. I told you to begin with, I survived. And, you know, a lot of people would have killed themselves just because of everything that is piled on top of you. And yes, I hid behind that paper plate smile for far too long. I didn't know what happy was. I didn't know how to be happy. I didn't know how it felt. I didn't know what love was. And, you know, it's our God-given right. We are born with the right to love and be loved. And, you know, sometimes it's just easier said than done.
And I would actually put forth that, like, let's remove judgment from that. Like, let's not even talk about that in terms of it's okay or not okay. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just what is.
Exactly.
It's what happened. It's how it happened. This is where we are now. We can't change the past. And if we're judging the past, then we're just wasting energy trying to fight it.
Yes. And, you know, that's the other thing is when you dangle your feet over the side of the bed, you are using yesterday as your platform to start today. So, you know, it doesn't matter, like you say, if it was a good day or a bad day. It was a day.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, you can always point things out that happened for good. But the lessons that you learned from yesterday, when you put your feet on the floor today, is where you start today. That is your first stepping stone. And if all you can do is live from the blink of an eye to a breath to a step, you've got to do this. You've got to do this. You've got to move forward. You've got to move forward.
Absolutely.
It's either that or check out, leave the game.
And you know, in my therapy session the other day, I was speaking with her, and it was just like all of a sudden, it's like existing is insanity. She's like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Existing. You get up in the morning, you go to the bathroom, you take a shower, you get your coffee, you get in your car, you go to work, you come home, you make dinner, you do the dishes, you go to bed." The alarm goes off, you do the next thing the next day, and you expect something to change when you don't change. Existing is insanity. Living involves life.
Yeah, it's living as a choice, living by choice rather than by chance. You know, like, in kind of where you're distinguishing between being a victim and a victor. You know, life can happen to us, or it can happen through
For
and for
us.
us.
It never happens to us. It always happens for us.
Right. And
Because if life doesn't happen for us, we don't have those lessons. Without the lessons, we can't learn and make better decisions.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
who knows what it is we're actually learning or growing into, but just knowing that we're growing into something bigger, something more than what we were the day before, sometimes that's enough. Like
Exactly.
I don't need to see the whole picture. I don't need to know what's going on anymore. I've kind of let go of that. But like I know that today I'm different than I was yesterday. I'm
Exactly.
I'm something more because I've learned,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
that's enough.
Right. It is.
You
And
you were you go ahead, Mary. I didn't mean to
no, I was just
interrupt.
going to say, the most important question that you can ask somebody that's in your circle, your friends, or even a stranger, how are you really doing today? Because if you say, how are you doing? Everybody just says fine. Fine doesn't, that's a consistency. It's,
Hmm.
how are you doing? And, I make a point to check in with different friends throughout the week and find out how they really are doing. And if they say fine, I ask them, the first off is, what's wrong? Because it's another paper plate smile. It's a generic answer.
There's actually something from the newest version or the remake of the Italian Job that about the word fine. Like, what does the word fine stand for? Fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
See, I like that. And and that's it. It's a generic blow off answer. Is I'm just fine. It's the same thing. If you're not winning, if something isn't going right in a conversation, you just fine.
Yeah.
And
It's a
you can
non-answer.
see the face, the hands, everything is a negative. Stop, stop, stop.
Yeah. It's out of a survival space. It's a non-answer. It's not present to the infinite expanding universe within you. It's not being in touch with, I would say, who we are when the answer is fine. I think like you're saying, it's that paper plate smile. How are you? I'm fine. It's kind of like, okay, well, tell me, what is fine like? How's your fine day? You having a fine day? Um,
Right.
and you were speaking about uh, love, and I think it's in the same space. Some will say like, we'll speak about love like it's something outside of themselves. Like I desire to love and to be loved, and it's like it's a separation, this illusion that we're separate from that. Like love is not something that we go outside for. It's something that we source from it. Like it's not something, yeah, it's not something outside us that we have to find and to seek and to go on this journey, get lost in the desert for 40 years and someday I'll find love. And it's like, you are love and you get to source it. You get to be and create it and plant those seeds. And I would love to, before we introduce Angelica in a moment here, you kind of spoke to this in a lot of your sharing, but a quote that you shared, I just want to give you an opportunity to speak about right here. You said, "It may not seem like it now. You are okay." And I want to give you an opportunity to speak to that.
You know, you are okay. You're doing the best that you can do with the knowledge that you have at today at this time, and it's okay. What you need to realize is if you are not in immediate danger and you have a way to get away from whatever problem or trouble it is that's bothering you, you're okay. You are at a spot where you can reach out for help. And, that's another thing I tell people is, they say, use your superpowers. It's okay to ask for help. It doesn't mean you're weak. And had I realized that years ago, a lot of the things in my life would not have happened. However, I will say this, I would not trade anything in my life that did happen because it has brought me to where I am today. And a lot of my clients that I work with, they don't call me their coach. They don't call me their mentor. They say, "You're my kick-ass mom." Because they can open up and talk with me. And I don't talk to people. I talk with people. There's a difference. One's an open line of communication. The other one is, "Oh shit, I'm in trouble." So when I speak with people, they will tell me things that they won't tell their mother, or they can't tell their mother. And then two, I'm going to be the one to tell you, you can sit and stew or you can rise and shine. It's your choice. My grandson over the summer, he did something that was really silly. And I said, "Why did you do that?" And he says, "I don't know." We sat down and had a 30-minute conversation because I would not accept, "I don't know." We went through the whole, I coached him like crazy, I will admit, but we went through the process and, just discussed how, "I don't know" is not an answer. It's another blow off. It's fine. So, don't accept "I don't know." Dig deeper. You are fine. You're exactly where you need to be, when you need to be there. And the signs are there if you just listen.
Oh, yeah, it's paying attention. It's also like what we were talking about in the very beginning of recognizing you versus what you've been taught. Like another way I think about this is it is impossible to be born on this planet and not be indoctrinated. Like to exist here is to be indoctrinated, to be trained.
That's a whole
That's just the way it is.
Story. Your paradigms. Yes. We are taught in school to do things a certain way. You go to church, they tell you to do things a certain way. They never teach you to be a free thinker. We shut off a child's imagination, like you said earlier, about the age of 7 or 8. If they go on further than that, we start to wonder and worry about them. Those aren't the ones we need to worry about.
Yeah.
Those aren't the ones we need to worry about.
And that's just their indoctrination. Like that's just the world they grew up in, and that's what they were taught.
Right.
And it's just been this ongoing cycle.
I'd love to have a whole nother talk with you about this, but that's one of those. It's a deep subject. We'll have it.
Very much so. Yeah. On that note, it feels like it's time to transition and bring Angelika on. So, Mary Frances, thank you so much. We'll see you again at the end of the show.
Thank you.
We'll check back within you a little bit, Mary Frances, but thank you so much for sharing. All right. So I'm going to check in real quick with everybody here. Thank you for joining us. I just want to give you all an opportunity to be a guest on this stage. This is a space to really share vulnerably and authentically your gifts, who you are uniquely. And I want to invite you to be a part and share with us, share with our audience, what you've faced in your life, what you've overcome, what fears and trials and traumas you faced, and what you discovered and who you discovered yourself to be on the other side of that. And that's why we have this space, is for people like you who are up to amazing things because you choose to be. And the link at the bottom of the screen is where you can do that. And this is part of what our one-day mission here is bringing you and me and communities together in joyous celebration, unifying humanity in our diversity, create a better world for us all. And it's my privilege and honor to introduce our second guest. We have with us, I'm going to bring her here we go, Angelika Ullsperger. Welcome, Angelika.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Welcome. So, Angelika, I want to give you an opportunity to share your story. You briefly heard a little bit, but want to just invite you to. I know you have some a PDF to share as well, but please just jump right in. If you're ready, Angelika, the stage is yours.
All right, so I guess I will start with the beginning. So as a child, I had a very hectic, chaotic home life. Later on in life, I experienced a lot more traumas. I developed CPTSD, which is complex PTSD. So it's different as in it comes from a multitude of events, where PTSD usually comes from one traumatizing event. But if there's a lot of them, it turns to CPTSD because it gets really complex. So I was working through that, healing through that, and I ended up in my first abusive relationship. That really broke me down. But later on, say maybe a year or two after that, the police actually had murdered someone I consider family at our house. For me, that was kind of like the last straw. All I did was sleep. So after that, all I did every day was sleep. So when COVID hit, I was lucky because, I didn't have to keep working. So I just slept. But it got to the point where I started to realize the effect I was having on others. Me personally, I always want to be that person who can be there for the people I care about and, bring happiness and joy to their lives. I was not doing that. I was doing the exact opposite because of the dark place I was in personally. So that's kind of where my journey started. It's kind of what woke me up, and I was like, okay, I've spent a lot of time being depressed, like a lot of years. It's time to change that. So I just started learning everything I can, and I worked on my thought processes. I really worked on how I perceived and reacted to things. So I learned a lot on my journey, and then I ended up getting to join a project called The Secret of Happiness. And that's actually where I met Mary. And we've been working on that, and I've just been learning even more and really applying it to my own life so I can do better and be better for others. Because you can't help others if you don't help yourself.
Oh, yeah. Both you and Mary, I really appreciate you both because you're bringing on things that a lot of people would consider impossible to come back from. Like maybe they're in it now, like they've experienced murder or rape or whatever, and it's like, I'm never getting out of this. And yet here two people are who have been through what a lot of people consider the worst possible thing that can happen to you on this planet. And yet you're here talking about it and you're okay with it and you're maybe even joyous about it. Like that's so just thank you for being an example first and foremost. Like that's huge. Like that's so huge.
It really is.
And
yeah, I acknowledge you for that courage it takes for that.
Honestly, it's something I have been talking about, but also Mary being courageous and showing, being vulnerable. I think, it helps me be vulnerable, and then that helps other people because it can be really hard to talk about these kinds of things. No one wants to admit that they're depressed. Like that's not very comfortable. So I have been working on being more vulnerable. And one thing I have learned is that talking about the problem helps you get through it. So one of the parts of PTSD, it's a post-traumatic stress response. So something happens and it brings your brain back to the exact moment. Your brain doesn't think it's safe because it thinks it is reliving this experience. So the more you talk about it, the more instances your brain realizes, oh, I'm safe. I'm okay. So that is one of the reasons I kind of started being more open. And then, as you mentioned earlier, how there's a lot of people who don't come back from that stuff. And I wanted to be an example and show people that no matter what you go through, you can make success happen and you can make happiness happen. It might be a little work, but it's worth it. It's something that you can 100% do. Anyone can do it. It's just consistency, because it doesn't happen overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't become completely happy in a day, but you can become happy.
It's so true, and it, like, what you're speaking to is, that, I mean, well, first of all, what you said about vulnerability is so true, because it feels so counterintuitive that, like, when we're vulnerable, that almost the society, the conditioning is that it's bad to be vulnerable, that it's weak to be vulnerable. And the more I age, the more experience I have, the more people I have like you and Mary Frances, is how much vulnerability is a superpower, not only for ourselves, but for everybody who's around it. Whoever you speak to vulnerably, when you're really just sharing just the darkest night of the mind, just what you're experiencing, how horrible and awful the feelings and the thoughts that were just all encompassing. But when you have the courage to share that suffering and that pain, it gives you an opportunity to shift it. And this is why I love art. I love music. And Sophia mentioned that you did some acting, and I'd love to hear about your artistic pursuits. But that's what I love about art, is you're seeing the suffering rather than being it. You can. This is why I love music. This is why I love. I mean, the blues is one of my favorite styles. It's taking an awful, scary, uncomfortable circumstance and experience, and channeling it into something beautiful. And that's what I see is what you're doing, and what you're up to is you're taking, these dark times in your life, the depression and the post-traumatic stress, and you're channeling, you're like taking all of that, and you're just like spinning it around, and you're just embodying and radiating, love and happiness, and your choice and power to bring that to yourself and others right now. So it's really inspiring to hear you speak about it.
Well, thank you. I am very flattered. So, sorry, let me catch my thoughts really quick. So you mentioned how vulnerability a lot of times is seen as a weakness. And that is, that's a stigma that people have been working on changing. But the truth is, being vulnerable, that's a strength. It takes so much strength to be open, to let people in. It takes so much more strength to be open with your feelings than it does to hide them. And it's so important to be vulnerable, because other people don't know you're suffering if you don't voice that. A lot of people have support systems, but those support systems can't read your mind. When you have to be able to be vocal to get that support. And when you're going through a tough time, support is one of the biggest things. Having people there for you, we're a social species. That's why in COVID, when we were all isolated, we got so depressed because we were alone. But also a lot of people were stuck with themselves and their thoughts. And they haven't had that before. A lot of people will, work, they'll hang out with people all the time to avoid these uncomfortable feelings and thoughts. And then during COVID, people were all of a sudden having to face those. So, it's so important how you think. It's like how you think about yourself and how you think about other things. So something that is really big I did want to bring up are cognitive distortions. So these are distortions in our thinking patterns. So for example, one is overgeneralization. So you have a bad time doing this one thing, and now you think everything else similar is going to be a bad thing. It's going to be a bad experience. And a lot of these cognitive distortions can cause depression, and it can really mess you up. So one of the things that I kind of like to compare it to is a path in the woods. So your brain can change. You're not stuck with your brain the way it is. It's like a path in the woods. You spend all of this time, say, thinking bad things about yourself, and that path has developed over time. Well, you decided you want to start taking a new path. So you start walking in this new part of the forest. Over time, that path starts to flesh out. You start to be able to see flat ground, and the flora and fauna kind of move away, and that path is developed. And it's the same with becoming happier and more positive, is that it's something that you have to work on, but each time you work on it, you get better at it. But if you start going back to that old pattern, that old path, the new path starts to shrink again, and the other one starts to get bigger. So I've learned it is so important to be cognizant of your thoughts and how you're thinking, and that's just a really big one.
That's so powerful, and I love that metaphor. And one analogy or metaphor we use a lot here is what you're speaking to is it's like a garden. Our thoughts, whatever we focus on is what grows. I could spend all my time focusing on all the wicked, scary thoughts and how horrible and how difficult, and I could, every time I water those thoughts, that's what grows. But the opposite is also true. We can actually water the things that lighten up our heart, that expound our soul's purpose, and what and that's what I hear you're doing. Is you have shifted that path. What you're watering is you're creating and blossoming, fruits of your heart and your soul, and you're giving that to others. So it's a gift that everybody receives. When you give that to yourself, you're giving it to everybody, and it's a beautiful thing to observe and to experience.
I'd say that's why it's so important. Oh no, you go first, Matthew.
Well, thank you. I was just going to say, I'm guessing this is something that actually came out of the Happiness Project, and like if it is, I wonder if this would be a great time to just actually kind of share what that is, and some of the things that you've taken from it and what you're actually putting out into the world now through it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's say, I wouldn't say the start was the Happiness Project, but I would say the Happiness Project was the start of something big for me and for a lot of people. So, I was already into positive psychology because I wanted to get better for myself and for the people I loved. So when I heard about this project called The Secret of Happiness, where we would be looking for the secrets, of happiness, I was amazing. I was so excited. I signed up instantly. I have learned a lot during my journey. I've met a lot of amazing people, but the information that I've learned has definitely helped me to be happier. So, for example, one of the conversations and interviews that we did was with Dr. Anil Gupta, and he has something called the 3 Gs. It's G cubed. So the 3 Gs are giving, gratitude, and growth. And these are 3 factors that affect your happiness. So, gratitude. One of the things he said was, when was the last time you actually thanked your hand? Your hand does so much for you every day, and we don't even think about it. When have you taken the time to, really be grateful for the tiny things? Like what Mary Frances was saying, that, be grateful. There's so many things to be grateful for, even the tiny things. So, and then we come on to our 2 other ones, which are growth and giving. So growth is growing as a person, intellectually, physically, emotionally, just growing. It's, it's a good feeling. You're not stuck in your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is where, your dreams go to die. And, you deserve to be able to grow into the person, grow into your full potential. And that is a great feeling. But one of my favorite ones is giving, because I don't know why. I think it's really fun. I just like to give people things. But giving, and it doesn't have to be money. It can be time. It can be a little picture you drew. These things, they're small, but they can have big effects. You never know how other people are feeling, even strangers, but you do a nice gesture for them, not expecting anything back. other than like, you know, the satisfaction that you brightened up someone's day, but that small thing you could do could make a huge difference for them. You know, there are people who don't experience as much kindness as they deserve. So when we're kind to people, and I think when we put love into the world, it gives other people power to spread love and put more love into the world. It's kind of like, it's a little ripple effect. So those are 3 really important ones. And yeah.
I love it, the 3 Gs. And I know you have a PDF that you wanted to share, so I want to give you an opportunity to tell us about that.
Yes, I do. So I just have a little PDF, nothing too crazy, and it just has some actions that you can take to be happier. So I mean, it's good stuff. Who doesn't want to be happier? And it's always a good time. It's never a bad time to give yourself a better life. You deserve that. And don't ever let anyone ever make you feel like you don't. People have so much worth. And, you know, the way other people feel about you, that does not take any of your worth away. So.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that. And we have that in the comments. If anyone would like to, or go ahead and text that number and you guys can get that PDF. And we're going to bring Mary Frances here in just a moment. But I just wanted to, one of the take home, well, let's bring Mary Frances in. You might as well, let's bring her back in here. But just to kind of, you know, complete that thought, you know, one of the things that you shared with us, quote, Angelika, and I think the key word here is create the happiness you deserve. And I wanted to hear, you know, and I think that's such a powerful, I mean, we talked about this in the beginning, you know, the power of creativity. And, you know, for me, that's the source of it is, you know, whatever happens in life, we can create sadness and sorrow and despair, but we also can create love and happiness and kindness and wonder and beauty. And I would love for you to speak to that, like what is creating happiness? What does that look like to you? What is creating happiness to you? And I guess I want to ask this to you, Mary Frances, as well.
Yeah. See, creating happiness for me is taking specific actions to that's such a good question. So I mean, for me, creating happiness is taking actions to put more happiness into my lives and other people's lives. And I think, you know, like I said earlier, when you create happiness, you can share happiness. And, you know, so think of it like a bunch of cupcakes, you know, you have like 12 cupcakes, they're your happy cupcakes. You give 6 away, you're still happy. And now this person has some happy cupcakes, and if they want, they can pass them along. So I think that it's a very powerful concept. And I think it's also just important, you know, people deserve to live their best lives. No one deserves to feel terrible. No one deserves to be depressed or be suicidal. That's one of the worst feelings in the world. So I just want to be able to help people to create more happiness in their lives.
Yeah, real quick, I want to jump in on that because that's something, like you touched on something that's very, very dear to me, which is inherent self-worth. Like, you know, to say that like no one deserves this, I feel like that's a very universally true and very powerful statement because we are inherently worthy of love. There's nothing we have to do to earn anything from anyone else. Like we're here, we are loved, we are worthy, period. Like, there's nothing else to add to that. And Mary Frances, I feel like that's like, I'd like to give you a chance to answer that same question. Like, what is creating happiness to you?
Well, I'm going to step back actually to what you just said about love. Okay. So imagine a football stadium filled with thousands of people, and you're in the middle of the 50-yard line, and you look around and you look around. Can you find one person there who is not worthy of love? You can't, because everybody is worthy of love. And so stepping back into, our Secret of Happiness project that we're working on, we have looked at, under a microscope, so many different things. And, a lot of people say, okay, so a person that doesn't have a lot of money can look at a rich person and say they can buy happiness. So does that mean when their money runs out, they're no longer happy? And I grew up, I didn't know we didn't have, or if we did have money. I was happy, I promise you, to take an old spoon and an old piece of Tupperware and go out in the yard and build mud pies. It made me happy. Happiness is what you make of things. We didn't have batteries like kids have batteries now. We were given a cardboard box. Make of it what you can. I believe that simpler things make you happier. Take the kid out to the park. It doesn't cost a penny to go to the park and push them on the swing or swing next to them. It's the memory that they're going to carry on. So, like Angelika said, we learned a lot of things during this process. And again, you can not choose to look for things, but that's your choice. Angelika said that Rome wasn't built in a day, but it was built daily. You need to work on it. Everything that you want. If you want a new car, you get up and you go to work every day to afford a down payment to buy a new car. Building daily. And
I love that.
Everything is exactly what you make of it.
There's one thread I don't want to lose in that. I want to pull out really, really quick before we move on, because it feels like it's so super important to bring this out. What you said, going back to that football stadium analysis or analogy, where you're on the 50-yard line and the stadium's filled with people. Can you look around and find one person that doesn't deserve love? And I know many people who would go, yeah, that pedophile over there, he doesn't deserve love. Or yeah, that murderer, that serial killer over there, he doesn't deserve love. And I challenge that. I challenge that right now. I don't know if it's true or not, but I challenge it, because think about it this way. In a way, you are the center of the universe. Everything that has happened up until this moment in time has happened to put you exactly where you are in this moment, exactly as you are in this moment, doing exactly what you're doing in this moment. And everything that happens after this moment can only happen because you are exactly who you are, where you are, doing what you are. You are the center of the universe, and so is everyone else. And as that deserves love.
Right. And just because you make a mistake, okay, and this is really important to teach your children. You may make a bad decision, or I don't even like to put it as a bad decision. You've done something that there were better decisions you could have made. It doesn't mean that I don't love you. It just means that we need to work on making better decisions. I'm a little disappointed, but this too shall pass. This too shall pass.
And also, maybe that bad decision is what opens up this whole new door possibility that couldn't have happened without it. We don't know what the future is going to hold.
Absolutely.
Right. So,
Angelika, you look like you're going to jump in here. So
I was just going to say, there's no success without failure.
Oh, totally.
you want to succeed, you're going to fail. No matter what you want to do in life, you're going to fail. And that's okay. That is so okay. It's not a bad thing. You can learn so much from it. It can open doors, just like you said, Matthew. And, it teaches you a lot, and you can use that failure to motivate you to succeed.
I love that. And I would even add, like, failure is required. I feel like I don't learn from my successes in life. I mean, maybe I'll learn, to appreciate and celebrate the fruits, but really the biggest lessons in my life have come from my failures. And I feel like that's pretty universal, because having, a failure is where the things that hurt, that are uncomfortable, we respond and we react. We see how we respond and make those mistakes and bad choices. But really, it's it's like the old adage, or the example people use, about Thomas Edison inventing the light bulb, and how it's like I forget, it was like 10,000 materials he tried before he found the proper material to make a light bulb. And it's like, no, I didn't fail to make a light bulb. I succeeded in 10,000 ways of not making a light bulb. And that's the attitude, when we actually see our failures as an access to grow, to learn. And I think that's beautifully said. And I want to go around, because I love this creating happiness, inquiry. And I know both of you answered it, but I want to go around the round table. I want you to answer that, Matthew, and I'm going to answer that too. What is creating happiness to you, and what does it look like?
What's your secret of happiness?
It's actually something that I am currently growing into as we speak. And it is a lot of what we've already talked about today. It's looking for gratitude. Like, we had another guest several months ago who pointed out that gratitude is not an attitude, it's a practice. And I love that. I love it so much, and I've adopted it. And like you were saying earlier, like, just wake up in the morning and find 3 things to be grateful for, even if it's like Angelika, your hand. Like, I don't know the last time I was grateful for my hand. Like, when you said that, I was like, well, shit. Like, when did that? No, I haven't. So thank you, hand. Thank you for being so useful, and like being able to grab things and manipulate things, and like I can learn things because of what you do, and my entire body. That opens up this whole level of thinking of, oh yeah, there's so many things that I have that are just inherently me, that enable so many things to happen, or enable me to do so many things. Like, I wouldn't be able to, even ego, even personality. Like, there's this kind of like a negative connotation that a lot of people talk about when ego is like a bad thing, like it's something we're trying to get rid of. And like, no, like, ego enables us to exist here. Like, we couldn't exist here without ego. Like, we couldn't even have this conversation without ego. So, like, it's remembering to thank all the little things is part of it. But then also, it's the growth, and not being attached to what I'm growing into, because I have no earthly idea. Like, I don't know the future, but just reminding myself that every single thing that happens is an opportunity to learn and to become something more than what I was a second ago and a second before that. And just staying in that mindset of growth, of just, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity. Everything is an opportunity if I choose to look for it. And so really, I guess what it comes down to is creating happiness for me is a choice. Like, I choose to create happiness. And when I choose that, then all of a sudden, all of these things that can create happiness become obvious. And like, that's it. Like, yeah, thank you for throwing that question out there, Abram. Speaking of things that they'd be happy about.
Absolutely. There's no right answer, and all of you have given the right answer. and I'll answer it for myself. I love, as you know, Matthew, I love this metaphor analogy of seeds. And for me, it's about planting seeds. And it's even and especially when there's nothing but resignation and despair and fear and victimhood. It's like creating happiness is, like you said, Matthew, is a choice. And but it's something that for me it's like improvisation. I'll use like I love improv, like comedic improv, but also musical improv. It is, life is not a composition that we have time to plan every moment beforehand. It's dance. It's a dance. It's a flow. It's a song. And I feel the opportunities in every moment, in every circumstance, every failure, every situation, the creating happiness is a rhythm that we get to create the beat to. And I just an example, I'll give you a very specific example. I was home in California for the holidays for visiting my family in California, and I was buying a gift for my mom. My mom has the most beautiful garden in the neighborhood. She's an amazing garden. She has the most beautiful, vivid garden, and just being there just brings me so much peace just experiencing it. But I bought her something online, and like a little owl, like a little ornament, an owl to put in her garden. And I ordered it ahead of time, but it was back ordered, and I was just like disappointed. It's like, oh, I really wanted to be able to, give this gift to my mom and to see the look on her face when she received it, but it was back ordered and it wasn't going to arrive until February. So I just kind of took this opportunity where I created, like, I was just like, well, I can still do something about this. And so I created this whole elaborate like fake letter where I kind of pretended I was a letter from the National Wildlife Federation, that it was like a letter to my mom saying that this owl had been spotted and how he was discovered and he was on the way. Like, it's just like this whole like elaborate, like I made a stationery, I printed it out. I printed out a missing poster. Like, it just like, I went above and beyond, and it brought me so much laughter and joy, like more so than the gift itself. Just create, and I could show you the letter, but it might take some time. Maybe I'll pull it up if you guys want to see it. But I just created this whole elaborate, silly letter from the National Wildlife Federation, how this missing owl had been spotted and it was on the way to her house and is finally going to arrive there. But it was like that for me. It brought me so much joy just knowing how I could still give this gift to my mom, even if she didn't receive it physically. I could still give her a gift that would make her laugh, that would make her smile, even without a physical gift. And I feel like that's what creating happiness is. It's giving the gift of me to plant those seeds of love, of laughter, of beauty in the ways that they don't expect. And when I can bring my mom that a laugh and a smile, like, that's the greatest gift I can give, more than something physical. And I feel, and that's one of the lessons I've learned from from when I can do that. When I do that is the gift. It is when I can give myself to the people I love and make them laugh and make them smile. That's the opportunity in every moment of life, especially when it doesn't go my way or your way, that we get to create. And that's what creating happiness is to me.
And I bet when she received the gift, it brought back the letter that you wrote, and it made her laugh when she opened it. Like, the joy. And I love the fact that you say that seeds and stuff like that come, and it just reminded me that oftentimes when things feel dark and dirty, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're buried. You're planted, and your time to grow will happen.
I'd love to add on to that.
Go.
Les Brown uses this wonderful analogy where he talks about bamboo. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with this, but bamboo takes years to sprout. It is under the dirt for years. But regardless, you have to water it every day. And, the second it starts growing, it shoots up. But I think, that says a lot. It's that, you have to work on yourself every day. And, the growth is happening, even if you don't see it. Your time is coming.
Right. And his grandson said something to him that he shared once. They were playing chess or checkers, and it was time for the child to go to bed. And he says, "No, I'm not going to bed. I'm not going to bed until I win." And it was like, what an interesting way of putting it. It's not over until you say it's over. It's not a win until you say you've won. So you don't always have to really win to say you've won. Because again, like we were talking about, the light bulb, we've lost the game, but we've learned a different strategy now by paying attention to the game. So, every day there's something to be won and gained. So
absolutely. And we get to own, I love that, because we get to create those rules. Our game, like, I feel like a lot
my
of
game, my rules.
Yeah, exactly. But I think a lot of unhappiness in life, speaking for myself and I feel many others, is when we're playing somebody else's game and not our own. When we're playing by the rules of what someone else says is important, what they say should be happy. And I feel like trying to make others happy, trying to please others, playing their game when we get to create our own happiness. We get to create those rules for ourselves and everybody, and it affects everybody when we can actually give that to ourselves.
Right. Yeah. And it's just so interesting, it's all in perception. Everything is going to be what you perceive. What you perceive, you believe. And that's just the way we just need to look at things is, I can say, "Oh, I just stepped in shit. It stinks. I'm going to throw these shoes away." Angelika and I, we don't do that. We like our shoes. We buy good shoes. We clean our shoes off. So, make the best of it. Scrape it off and fertilize something and move on.
It's exactly how, you can turn your mess into your message. You can take that, you can grow with it. And right. I don't know how I completely forgot to mention this, but one of the most important things that I've learned during this project, happiness is a skill. It's something that you can work on. It's something that you can improve on. You're not stagnant. And just like any other skill, there's always room to improve. And learning that really changed a lot for me.
And again, too, Angelika, it all comes down to it's a choice. You can choose to keep working on it. Again, you have to water a flower, the bamboo every day in order for it to grow. So, it's your choice. And when you learn to make that choice, it means a lot. It means a lot.
It's like what you were saying earlier, Mary Frances, that, Rome was built, you said this, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it was built every day. And I think that's the practice of choosing to plant those seeds of happiness. Choosing to make, as you said, Angelika, the mess into our message. And it goes back, it just comes full circle with that superpower that our vulnerability of the hardest, darkest moments of our life are actually the opportunities to create happiness, to choose those games that we're playing, that we can bring that love, that experience of something greater to ourselves and others. And I think that is the gift that we always have an option and a choice to do and to give. And I think, and I see you both are living, breathing examples of that. You are both, living and breathing and radiating love and happiness, and it's contagious. I'm happy right now speaking with you and being with you. And it's an mission just to have you both share with us who you are and what you're up to. And I'm just very excited and encouraged, just being in this space with you, but also just knowing that you two are you being you in the world. I'm just excited for anybody who crosses your paths, like how lucky they will be to just be in that space of love and happiness that you both are sharing and creating and radiating. And so it's beautiful to experience and to witness.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us also, because it's been so much fun talking to you guys.
It has been. And, like Angelika said, making your mess into, you can always clean up a mess. And, it's, people say, just pull up your bootstraps and move on. You can do that, but really until you've dealt with the mess, it's not, you're going to always attract mess. So when you learn to love yourself is when you learn to attract love and when you learn to give and admit love. And that's a powerful skill. Like you say, a superpower. We keep coming back to that phrase, a superpower. And, reach within, grab your superpowers. Every once in a while, you got to put your hands on your hips and look up at the sky and do that little superwoman pose. Move on with your day, Angelika. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you're not going to light your own torch, who can?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So.
Well said. So
yeah,
I really go ahead, Matthew.
Well, real quick. So, Angelica, I saw your message. I know you've got to run really quick. And this actually comes back full circle to that poem that I mentioned earlier today. I'd just like to close and read that really fast and just leave it, because this is something that helped me shift my perspective into what we're talking about today. It really resonated. And I, like, everyone I've read it to has been like, yes, that. And so this is a poem from the Hopi elders. To my fellow swimmers, here is a river now flowing very fast. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid, who will try to hold on to the shore. They are being torn apart and will suffer greatly. Know that the river has its destination. The elders say we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river, and keep our heads above water. And I say, see who is there with you and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personal, least of all ourselves. For the moment we do, our spiritual growth and journey come to a halt. The time of the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves. Banish the word struggle from your attitude and vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration, for we are the ones that we have been waiting for.
That's beautiful. I really like the way it ended. So I think there's a lot of people that, want change and they wait for somebody else, but we can be that change. There's nothing stopping us besides ourselves.
Exactly. And just how beautifully that summed up everything we spoke about today. Amazing.
Yeah, I still tear up every time I read it. Guys, ladies, thank you so much. I love you both. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure.
And I hope, Abram, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for being here. It's really been an honor and a pleasure. And I would love to have you both back again soon. Share some more. It's really an inspiration. Again, both of you being you enlivens me, and I'm moved, touched, and inspired. So just thank you both for sharing with us and just being who you are in the world. And thank you all for tuning in and being with us. It is, I'll take this opportunity to really, again, to invite you to be a part of the stage. If you'd like to be a guest and you want to share this is why we're here. We want to invite you to be on the stage and to share your story, share your wisdom and experience, what you faced and overcome in your life. And this is part of what our one day vision is humanity rising in a connected world, with each person's unique gifts, genius, and contributions being valued and magnified through a higher level of collaboration, producing unprecedented new realms of possibility. And that's what we're doing, one share at a time, one gift at a time. I love you all. We'll see you next week. And as always, one day is today. Peace, everybody.